Well, hello guys, Mark here from Nomad Stays again. Time for another weekly update about the future of travel. I'm still here in France. We've been tripping around a little bit. The weather is fantastic here in summer. I've got my trusty Chief Happiness Officer Dakar with me. Linda's back in the office, if you want to call living in a gîte in the French Alps an office, but she's back there working hard away on social media right now. So this week, it's only 6 days since my last update. It's been a huge series of announcements and stuff around the world. Every day brings new things. So let's just get into the latest news and sort of see what it means for us as travellers these days. You may have seen, I posted a meme there the other day, instead of crossing a road like on a zebra crossing these days, it's a bit like the old Frogger. You've got to jump from log to log to get across the road, or in this case across borders. So what's happened in the last week? So probably the biggest news flying around at the moment is Virgin Atlantic filing for bankruptcy, what they call a Chapter 15 bankruptcy. You may have heard that a few weeks ago Virgin Australia had filed for bankruptcy, eventually got bought out by Bain Capital. And Bain Capital have announced that how they're going to, unfortunately, retrench about a third of their staff. They're going to standardise a lot of their flights and a lot of their aircraft, and they're walking away from the low-cost model. Virgin Atlantic, it's going to be interesting to see what happens for that. It's a bigger business, of course. The Europe to North America route has been huge for many years, obviously been decimated at the moment with massive outbreaks, first in Europe and then later in the US. That's on the bad side. Lockdowns started up in a whole lot of new areas, or re-lockdowns as we're finding. Manila, Philippines, gone back into lockdown again. Parts of Vietnam's been really good at managing their crisis exceptionally well, but they've started locking down places. A little bit of an outbreak down there in Da Nang. Australia, back into state-by-state lockdowns. No cross-border activities on the East Coast. As of Saturday, Australian time, the state of Queensland is stopping everybody coming in from all the East Coast states. Tasmania has never opened up. South Australia is still very closed. Western Australia, still closed and under a High Court challenge about how they've actually closed the borders. It's going to be interesting. It seems like the state might lose the legal fight, being pushed by a very large miner trying to get his mines operating again. US numbers are continuing to grow. Mexico, India, Brazil, still major hotspots. Good news, Bali. Bali has announced that they're going to try and reopen again around the 21st of September. So for nomads trying to get out and go somewhere else, that might be great news. For people nearby that are trying to get in, also good news. So still a bit of time to get under the belt before that happens. What else have we got going on? Oh, interesting. So we've seen Ryanair here in Europe been doing some pretty good business, some great low-cost prices. Obviously all the airlines have done a sterling job at putting in some very high filtration cleaning equipment and deep cleans of the aircraft quite a lot. So while Virgin Atlantic might be having problems, it looks like Ryanair is doing very well. And we have a friend that popped over from the UK this week, flying British Airways. And she's a couple of interesting things. The airports are not that busy. You can have a look at some of the pictures I've tweeted from Lyon airport the other day. But the airlines, certainly the BA flight, was full. And social distancing sort of being forgotten around a lot of the airports. Security is still very high, but I think they're more interested in terrorism alerts and things like that. So we certainly saw a lot of very heavily armed police / military in Lyon the other day. But the procedures for crossing out of airlines into new countries seem to be very lax. You've got to fill out forms and nobody's looking at them. There's no temperature checks being done, anything like that. Things that existed during the SARS crisis haven't yet rolled out. Very interesting sort of fact. Let me just look down my notes. Portugal, starting to open up. Some of the countries like Denmark allowed to travel into Portugal at the moment. So that's going to be finally some good news to Portugal, which has been locked down for a long time. Obviously a high dependency on tourism there in Portugal, and if they can resurrect something from the summer, they're going to try really hard, I'm sure. Let's just look down here. So here in France, Germany, Western Europe, things are quite busy. You know, certainly the gîte that we live in has been full for the last week. One of the reports coming out of the US showing that the average booking time is about 5 days now. This time last year, about 10 days. So people are booking a lot later once they have a clearer judgment on what's going to happen with lockdowns, isolation, quarantine, all the side effects of crossing a border. A lot of the business is going domestic still, but although in saying that, we have a range of British people we've been noticing around the UK, talking to some people from Toronto, Canada yesterday, some other people from Italy. So there's still a moderate amount of business. People are having fun, restaurants are open, prices are not necessarily lower, service is great. You know, people are out there enjoying themselves, the water, the beaches. You know, people are just getting a little bit of a break and a huge relief. We ended up sitting in a winery yesterday night that opens up for a couple of hours at the end of each day, and a lot of fun. People very hospitable, obviously very keen for business. We end up buying way too much wine, and the vigneron was just amazing. Just, don't worry about that, we'll round it down. Oh, better throw you a couple of extra bottles. Absolutely amazing there from Colombert in the Savoie. Can't wait to be tasting a bit more of his wine as well. So some places doing great. Serbia, another one. Lockdown for the people, the locals. They are stuck in country effectively, and they're booking out all of their country hotels, B&Bs, apartments. Prices have gone through the roof in Serbia. Great recovery for those properties out through there, but likely to drop off. We've got some amazing prices, not just in Serbia, but over the border in Montenegro. Obviously a lot smaller domestic population, can't survive on its domestic tourism just because it's a relatively small country, but the prices there are amazing. And some countries are allowing travel in and out of Montenegro. Obviously a lot of water, a lot of forests, a lot of ancient history, and no crowds this year. So some really good opportunities. Bulgaria, still going nicely, getting a good return of digital nomads that have visited before and first timers coming in. One of our favourites, Bulgaria, and things to be settled quite down there. Although in a lot of these places you've still got some civil unrest going on. The protests about the government in Bulgaria have been running now for about 3 weeks, similarly about 4 weeks in Serbia. So infections may not be the top risk you have in going to some of these countries. Luckily here in France we haven't reached strike time of the year yet, so that's really quite enjoyable. The other really good news is that there's some stage 3 trials of a couple of different vaccines around the world. So people are racing off their feet, the scientists, the medical companies, to try and work out a vaccine for what's happening. Both Australia, UK and the US at least have had some good vaccine production, like I said, stage 3. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think there's a vaccine out of Germany about to go into stage 3 trials as well. So by the time the northern winter kicks in, you never know whether there's going to be a little bit of a vaccine solution for the high-risk groups. Probably not for everybody. You know, just think about the volume of work needed to create all of this. It's going to take a bit more work, but certainly high-risk groups I could probably start crossing their fingers and hoping that the scientists and medicos are doing such a great job. That's great. Obviously, the southern hemisphere in winter at the moment is finding that sort of surge in infections, as generally happens in a winter time with other viruses like the flu. Much more indoors activity going on, colder, more difficult to be outside. Some of the early reports are that northern hemisphere should expect that come winter time. But as you can see, we've just had a week's worth of 36 degrees here in the Alps, in the French Alps. Weather is still stunning, but we know that it's going to be covered full of snow in about 5 or 6 months' time. Okay, let's have a look at the business front. So, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's some great tech companies that are just going gangbusters at the moment. There's some massive new uptake of customers across a lot of software or SaaS companies, a lot of online training companies. Our colleague that's popped over from the UK is a startup founder in her own right. She's set records since COVID has been announced. She's been able to reduce her day job down to a couple of days a week, and things are going really well. We've seen some great charts and graphs of other companies. Safety Culture, big Australian startup company with sort of offices around the US. You know, they had a great report this week about how they had a huge drop-off in the sort of the April time, but set records, like triple their sales for June. So we're seeing that. Prices of a lot of software is going up, not just as a relationship with the foreign exchange, which is jumping around the place. Gold hitting $2,000 an ounce. There's a bit of gold is seen as a safe position when markets and currency seem to be at risk, and people have been jumping into gold. Bitcoin, a lot more volatile than gold actually, but you know, been going up nicely for well, I should say a couple of days, but it's probably more like a month or two now. Forgetting about the short dips and troughs that are going on. So a flight to something less risky for those with capital around the world is occurring. Software companies, some are doing some great business. The other side is that unemployment is still very high, and as Northern Hemisphere kids have finished school, a lot of university students finished, there's a lot more people on the job market or about to hit the job market. Not a lot of jobs out there, as we've seen. So one of the positive things that we've seen is that a lot of, the French military are just doing some low-level crossings with their jets. A little bit noisy, sorry if you can't hear me. Hopefully they won't break the sound barrier today. They did that a few months ago. The locals got a bit upset. So interns, a lot of interns out there. Should you want to set up a program to take some unpaid or little paid people on board, there's at least 50 interns across 3 continents we've been exposed to in the last couple of days. These young people are desperate to get some work experience, put their learnings into action. If they get paid, that's great. If they don't, that's great as well, because they're trying to get themselves a leg up. So if you can get yourself organised, even you freelancers that historically been solo, if you want to sort of look at adding a few extra people, a few extra freelancers to your team, maybe for those things that you don't quite understand or finding too time consuming, this might be the absolute gem of a time. Now, let's say that you do very well, you might have a few dollars, you might have found yourself a new staff member. So worth thinking about as a way of scaling your own business, having a look at some of these interns. The other side of the tech platform changes in the last couple of months, you've probably seen there's been a massive rollout with big platforms such as Instagram, such as Facebook, such as Zoom. All these platforms are getting massive rollouts. There's a whole lot of new functionality and microservices based inside them, and it's just getting complex. It's just getting really complex. And if you're like me, you're finding some of it a little bit too time consuming. Maybe the interns and the kids are a great way to solve it. They seem to be on top of this a lot more. Who knows? The TikTok thing is on again, off again. Rumour is that Microsoft is in negotiations to buy TikTok in the United States, but God bless his soul, but Trump wants a cut of the action. He thinks he needs to broker a deal and earn a commission for the US government in the meantime. But, if those, what are we up to, 400, 500, 600 million TikTok users find themselves shutting down, there's going to be a lot of highly skilled people out there if they're interns or young people as well, may be ready to jump onto some of the platforms that you're using. I'm certainly finding Facebook hard to use. We're getting better results from our business on Twitter, but we have a much bigger base there. Instagram is still the great place to go for good news stories. We're seeing a whole lot of new stuff popping into LinkedIn, although the navigation UI is getting a bit hard, and we're seeing the microsites starting to kick off as well. There's been a whole lot of new groups kicked off in new platforms I've noticed again in the last couple of weeks. So with all this change going on, there's some opportunities and some risks. The other thing that's happening in the business world is it looks like the switch to online meetings and online conferences, seminars, seems to be permanent. There's a lot of companies have now said that temporary work from home, no, it's permanent. We've made the shift. We're going to let you work from permanent. We'll let you going to use a lot more freelancers. We'll let you fill the gaps, give a bit more discretion to the staff as to who and how they employ people. And that's going really nicely. Although, when you start looking at the video platforms, some of them have reached some capacity issues with their backhaul. Backhaul being the linkage of data, say I'm streaming and having a meeting with somebody in the United States, it's got to go across the Atlantic. And if everyone else is doing the same, there's a shortage there, and the quality changes according to the platform. You may or may not know, but the Facebook group invested a lot in their own data centers and their own cables the last couple of years. So a lot of the Facebook activity works very well, that being Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp being their major brands. We found, I was having the other day, Zoom was having some issues the last couple of weeks for us. Apart from the growth in Zoom bombing, we got Zoom bombed twice this last week on a couple of other people's Zoom chats. It was a lot of fun. It took a bit of quick action by the administrators, but the quality of Zoom was having an impact on a lot of what we were seeing last week. Google Meet, however, was kicked up again. Google is another one of those companies with their own cables between countries, particularly high-use countries and their data centers, so their quality was getting quite good. Telegram, it's another one of my favourite platforms. Telegram seems to have solved the problems they had about a month ago. So one of the nice things I like about Telegram is that I can have a voice call from my PC, which I can't do easily from WhatsApp, for instance. For me, Facebook Messenger isn't anywhere near secure enough for the level of business conversations we do, so it's not on the scene. And then of course you've got a lot of the Eastern Europe and Asia uses Viber. Quality again pretty good on Viber, backed by some big Japanese companies that seem to understand backhaul quite good. Signal I've not used for some time. Of course that's the highly secure one that I find certain industries very, very keen on. All in all, we've got some big tech changes, some challenges. There's a lot of change going on from a business perspective, from a market perspective, from a border perspective. Prices of staff, well, senior people are still commanding very good rates. Juniors, interns coming down. So from a freelancer, from a founder point of view, there's some interesting times. There may be some opportunities to grow your team without anywhere near the money you needed this time last year. All right, last item, I hope. The governments around the world brought in a range of subsidies and loans to overcome the initial shock of the COVID and isolation crisis. A lot of those are now 4 months in with if they were 3-month programs, then they might have been extended a month. If they were 6-month programs, in the last couple of months. And there's a lot of debate about how to recover or what's going to happen in the next few months with those subsidies. It's pretty clear that there isn't a lot of jobs out there of skilled or semi-skilled basis. A lot of jobs in helping Amazon shift goods, for instance, but not necessarily the average small business. The hospitality industry, still not a lot of jobs there. Restaurants still open 1 minute, closed the next. Governments are not necessarily employing any more people. In fact, they may be dropping back on their consultants to put a few more permanents on, just to improve their knowledge base inside the organisation. The government subsidies are going to be looked at again by the world's major countries. Expect a lot more changes there, which won't necessarily just be for the established businesses that are trying to survive. You should expect that there'll be new incentives for a new range of businesses. So probably a pretty good time for startups. Not a lot of details, but there's that sniff in the air how government is going to be supporting a lot of startups and initiatives in self-employment. So keep your ear to the ground. Start setting up your links of information, and who knows what's there. This week, my tip is to use an RSS feed reader. RSS, real simple syndication, is a technique. It's a software methodology that has been around 25 years. It converts a news item or a blog item, anything that's published on a page, it converts it down into a very simple text basis with very simple headlines and drops a lot of the pictures and so forth. RSS feeders are one of the ways that I get to read through 30, 40, 50 newspapers a day to keep a tab on what's going on. I read the same interface, I flick between messages, I see a summary, and then when I want to jump in a little bit further, double tap. I don't need to go to the website, I just get the full message there. The other advantage with my reader, and there's dozens and dozens of these readers out there, my reader is integrated with Google Translate, so if I'm reading something in a foreign language, I can translate it on the screen and get a gist of what's going on. Great way to get your head around a lot of what's changing at the moment, particularly in countries that you're trying to travel to or that you're tracking for what's going on. You know, I don't know about you, but my Danish isn't very good, but there's some interesting stuff coming out of Denmark at the moment. So tip of the week, RSS feed reader. Get into it and see if you can save yourself some time, grow some business, travel the world, enjoy yourselves a lot more, and we'll see you next week. Don't forget to sign up for Nomad Stays. It's a free registration at the moment to join the community and just see what's happening around the world. And when you're getting travelling, we've got some really inexpensive accommodation for you to use. That's all from me today. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.